So I'd like to welcome each of our speakers back onto the screen to take part in our panel sessions. So that'd be James, Alex, and Trevor, Clive and Tim, and Warren. So yeah, this session will take about 15 to 20 minutes or so. Viewers, if you haven't already, please ask your questions using the Q&A button and we'll get to as many as we can. Just a reminder that our buy-side investor fireside chat is coming up next. So I'm going to kick it off with an ESG question, and I asked this question this morning during the Athabasca 1 sessions, so I ask it again. You know, ESG, such an important consideration for junior stocks in the Athabasca Basin. Namely, the Clearwater River Nation showed concern last year that so many uranium companies were coming into the, either crossing their traditional lands or coming onto their traditional lands, at least in the Western Athabasca, where they are. So the question I pose is, how do your teams really approach social license and community consultation? So
I'd be happy to jump in on that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're working really closely with CRDN, addressed a lot of concerns. We're working with Chief Teddy Clark and the others to be good corporate responsible citizens. And a couple of our drill programs over the last couple of years have ended early. And we could have stretched them. But the last thing you want to do is dunk a rig into a water supply or have an issue. And so we've taken that fairly seriously. It's not a perfect process. There's always some challenges, but we met recently with CRDN and had a really good conference here in Vancouver with them, and so it's a priority for us, and really it's part of what we do now in the basin, and just being on top of it and being cognizant and listening. It's really important.
Mm-hmm. Warren, you've worked in that area as well, correct?
Yeah, on the northern rim. We are working with the Athabasca Land Resource Office. We've had an engagement agreement with them. It goes project by project. There's an analysis that they do on our project to look for any culturally significant areas. Once those are identified, if they coincide with where we want to work, then buffer zones are known and created, and we avoid certain areas. So far, that hasn't really been an issue. But we're always watchful of what comes to us from the Athabasca. There's 3 communities or First Nations represented by them in our area on the north. So that's Fond du Lac First Nation, Black Lake First Nation, and Hatchet Lake. And I think I heard about Hatchet Lake earlier. And so that's where the umbrella of the Athabasca is. And these First Nations have signed agreements with the Athabasca to be represented by the YNLR, as we say for short, and we have a good relationship with them. It's always helpful to have an intermediary that you can send things to, and then they meet the First Nations first, and then we have engagement meetings with First Nations, one-on-one, so to speak, in this new era of Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Okay. James, how's your experience working with social license?
Likewise, it has been really good for the better part of things. We've got 6 different First Nation communities, First Nation and Métis, so Indigenous communities that we're dealing with for our projects. We've been very open. We've always engaged the communities prior to doing any exploration work. We did have one hiccup with one of the communities, just it was more of a proximity thing, but we have reestablished communications and things are looking good there. Now with the new council that they have voted in, it's in their hands right now to see where they want to move forward. But from calls that we've had earlier this year is that they would like us to continue moving forward with them. And that's what we plan to do for sure. But even with all of the other communities and all the other projects, again, we've always been out there, talk to them first. For example, English River First Nation have told us on the Catharsis project that they have their annual retreat between the months of, for the whole month of September. So we've made it a fact on our end that we don't go up there and do any exploration at all between mid-August to mid-October. So just, establishing the communications and being very cognizant of what's going on up north.
Okay, great, thank you. And Clive, Tim, what can you add to this?
Well, David, to date, Tim and I haven't had any direct contact with any of the Aboriginal peoples in our area. That being said, our land vendor has been in ongoing negotiations and kept the bands in the area well informed. And while Tim and I haven't had any direct experience with these particular bands, Tim and I have had a lot of experience dealing with other bands in different geographic areas in relation to other companies that we're involved in. And as James pointed out, quite often, really, as long as the lines of communication are kept open and these people do not feel like they've been overlooked or cast aside, our experience is that, it seems to be the experience of the others on the panel, that they're quite easy to work with, and it's our intention to keep them well informed of what it is we're doing as we move forward, and make every effort we can to keep them informed and engaged.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you said your company is right now one project company. Do you plan to stake or acquire any other projects in the basin?
We're looking in a variety of other areas. We're not looking at staking anything in the basin at this point, or acquiring anything in the basin at this point.
Okay, can you, I guess, let the word slip where you might look for other projects? And I'm assuming they're uranium.
Oh, for sure, absolutely, uranium. Because we're in the process of staking, David, I really don't want to talk about the geographic areas we're working in, to be honest with you.
Okay, but outside of Saskatchewan.
Outside of Saskatchewan, yes.
Right.
Outside of Canada.
Okay, fair enough. So, I guess here comes the question, why work in the Athabasca Basin? What characteristics do your projects share with some of the big deposits? And how do we go about finding another monster deposit in the basin? And I think, maybe James, we start with you here, because you go to great lengths to educate people on the geology and the exploration techniques. So, how do you find another monster in the basin?
You drill. You look to find the monster in the basin is you have to go into the basin. But as our approach is, you don't need the monster anymore. You didn't need the monster in the past, you don't need it in the future. Unless you're in that sandstone, then you need the monster. And to be very honest, you probably have a better chance of finding a unicorn downtown Toronto than you do finding the monster in the Athabasca. So it's really, again, goes back to the whole economic standpoint of things, is what's going to turn into a mine. Yeah, the monster will, not without issues. How deep are you going to go nowadays? So why not step back and look outside? Just seems to be a little bit easier.
Okay, so maybe let's elaborate a little bit on the Accio discovery. As the mineralization shallows, it does seem to be going from basement rocks to sandstone hosted. Is that correct? Maybe at the unconformity, is that?
Nope, not at all. Actually,
within the basement rocks.
It's all within the basement rocks. The sandstone is actually east of where our mineralization is, and our mineralization is at a higher level than where the sandstone is. So it's kind of throwing me for a loop as well. It just doesn't make sense. But based on some of the evidence that we've seen, clay alteration in the drill core, and even some of the sandstone geochem that we're getting back, it looks like there's some potential within the Athabasca still for unconformity mineralization.
Okay. Oh, sounds good. Trevor and Alex, the East Preston drilling last year cut short due to weather. I think everybody was across the basin. This year you had essentially technical success identifying the right structures, anomalous mineralization, some alteration. Is there much you can do this summer, or must you wait till next winter before it can get going again? And what are you planning to target once you do get going?
No, there's probably not a lot we can do that's really going to move the needle, A, in this market, and B, during the summer. But Trevor can elaborate a little bit about how we're gonna utilize some methodologies to continue on targeting. But we kind of know where we're going, particularly East Preston. and Hatchet has bona fide targets. It's drill ready. But Trevor, you might want to jump in there.
We're at the point now with East Preston where really the best tool we have in our arsenal is drilling. We've identified the structures, we've identified the alteration, and now we just have to drill and chase them. And you get to that point where that's still your best tool, because that is the only real truth. Everything else is just giving you a picture of what may or may not be there until you actually drill it. So I mean, we could go in there and do some work this summer, but really that would just be evaluating targets for future drill programs. But our emphasis this summer and fall will be on our Hatchet Lake project, with the intention to get back in drilling at East Preston in the winter.
Yeah, no, and it's important that, the biggest issue that we really have in the market right now is investor patience, which is at zero. So, everybody wants everything done yesterday, and some companies, and they know who they are, will hit early. The majority of the rest of us, it takes time. You got to put some meters in the ground, and it's not like we have a small target zone. We have kilometers of target zones here, and Trevor and I have discussed this alteration and the importance of it numerous times. And if we had 300, 400, 500 meters of it, you'd have a pretty good idea of the bullseye that we're looking at. The fact is, now we have 1,700 meters of alteration to dig into, and it hasn't stopped. It only stopped because we stopped drilling. Now, the other issue that we have is people are really waiting for our drill results. We should have them pretty quickly now. The labs were dealing with an influx of volume. We knew that was going to happen. Anybody paying attention would have known that capital that had flowed in to the space and into the basin was pretty high, and there was a lot of drilling going on, and there were staffing issues to begin with, and those staffing issues have manifested themselves in delays. So, every day I'm dealing with people who are telling us that we're idiots in the world, and that it's our fault that the labs are slow, and every other thing. And the reality is we're just kind of moving along here, waiting for it all to come in. But look, it's the end of June. July and August go by, and suddenly we're talking Hatchet Lake drill program. So we're really not that far off from getting back on the ground.
You're not alone complaining about lab turnover times. Any commodity, most places in the world. So, what is the turnover time? What are you seeing?
Trevor, you've got the 103-day stat there for me?
We're looking at 14 plus weeks for the first batches that we sent in. So I mean, it's this is normally a 6 to 8 week turnaround. We're at 14 weeks. It is what it is.
And there's nothing we can do about that. We can't make things happen. And our understanding is that the staffing issue is not at the higher level. It's really at the lower level, insofar as they need people to do things with core boxes, and that's really where the issue lies.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Warren and Tim, ALX has been around for quite a while, either as ALX or Alpha. And you guys have had a lot of experience in the sector too. How has your approach to exploration changed over the years?
Well, from my standpoint, I was always looking for things that could be indicators on surface in a kind of a hostile environment for that, where you have featureless sandstone swamps, lakes. Where do you drill? And if you have a conductor, what's something that tells you that a certain part of that conductor is fertile for uranium? So 20 years ago, I looked at MMI. I managed to twist Cameco's arm to run a survey over Laroque Lake, and they actually saw an anomaly, but it didn't reproduce. So right away, these so-called black box techniques, they get downgraded by geoscientists, by geochemists. However, if you don't try new things, how can you find that fertile spot? Because you could have a kilometer long or 10 kilometers long of conductors, and you could drill it till kingdom come, and you'll find graphite. So how do you find where the uranium is? A cross-cutting structure, a soil survey that's telling you there's nanoparticles of uranium above a fertile conductor. Also, the penetration of airborne surveys has increased remarkably from, say, VTEM in 2006. You might get 200 meters penetration, which is not enough in some cases. It's just not enough to see the basement. So now we have these new techniques like the HeliSAM that I showed a picture of, and those should help us. And I will joust with James on the unicorn comment, because I think there's still room to find bonanza deposits, the MacArthur rivers. If we find them now, yeah, they might sit for 10 or 20 years, but eventually they could be mined and someone will have them in inventory. So I will vote for bonanza, because that's what got me into uranium in the first place.
Yeah, certainly. And you know, when companies like Hathor come around and identify Rough Rider discovery off conductor, that throws another wrench into the game as well. How do you find those things that are off conductor? And then keep in mind, nobody's looked at off conductor before. So
Right.
you know, you're close to the boundaries of the basin. Are you actually targeting sandstones as opposed to basement hosted rocks?
You're asking me?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, it can be both. Obviously, you'd like to find something as shallow as possible, and as we saw in the unconformity model, the basement hosted can be part of that. That's MacArthur River. I mean, what was originally found was at the unconformity, and Shea Creek, there's uranium in the sandstone, but these structures can have uranium fertility a long way down. So you could have a hybrid, you could have both. The fact is that you have to drill deeper now to make sure you don't miss something. And that's what Cameco proved at Millennium, because one time our geologists fell asleep and the drillers kept going. Oh my God, we went 120 meters into the unconformity. Oh my goodness. And they said, oh, that's okay. Because they hadn't told anyone about Millennium yet.
Yeah, understood. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for having a great discussion. After this, our final session of the day is our fireside chat. That's with buy-side investors, L2 Capital, Sachem Cove Partners, and Tribeca Investment. That's coming up at 5 o'clock today. So I will see you soon. Thank you for joining me, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Dave. Thanks to all you
Dave.
guys as well. Thank you.